All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the stream. Welcome if you're new. Thank you for taking time out of your day to hang out with me here and watch the content. Something I want to talk to you guys about today is the future of consoles, is the future of PlayStation consoles, Xbox consoles. Well, maybe not Nintendo consoles. I don't think many people feel as though the future of the Nintendo console is in question. But certainly with PlayStation and Xbox, I do think that this is something that people are, they're talking about it quite a bit. It's not to say that people haven't questioned this before, right? Like, oh, is this the last console generation? Are consoles going downhill? Are they on their way out? This is a question that is pretty much asked every single console generation. But this time around, though, it seems like it's a little bit different when it comes to PlayStation, and more specifically, Xbox. I would say it's very different. So I want to have this conversation with you because we actually have a former Xbox boss who believes that right now there are serious questions being asked about the future of consoles and the console market. And so we're going to dive into that conversation. Before we do, though, do me a favor, guys. If you enjoy the streams, if you enjoy the content, be sure to hit that like button. Not only does it just help the stream out with the algorithm, but it lets me know that you enjoy the content. There are 3 ways you can support my content directly. You can become a channel member. You gain access to some exclusive perks. One of those perks is the Members Lounge. We did a long 2.5-hour episode yesterday. So if you are a channel member or if you get gifted a membership, go check that out. And if you want, consider gifting some memberships as well. It's a big thing we do here. Really gets the community involved, gets them excited to gain access to those perks. And last but not least, please consider donating a super chat, ask a question, give an opinion, make a statement, anything in between. It all helps tremendously. So yeah, thank you guys so much for continuing to support the content and support the channel. Without that support, I simply wouldn't be able to do what I do here. With that out of the way, though, let's dive into what is being said here. This is being written up by VGC. It says former Xbox, Sega, and Electronic Arts executive Peter Moore believes that serious questions are being asked about the future of console generations. The future of console platforms has become a hot topic in the games industry recently after Microsoft announced plans to bring 4 games to PlayStation 5, and Sony indicated it will implement a more aggressive PC strategy following lower than expected financial results. And with Xbox console sales disappointing and Sony claiming the PlayStation 5 is entering the latter half of its life cycle, Peter Moore believes that the platform holders could be debating whether another console cycle is worth billions of dollars in investment compared to focusing on multi-platform and cloud initiatives. Peter Moore launched the Dreamcast and Xbox 360 consoles during his previous industry roles, as well as heading up EA Sports. I think it's a real serious question that's being asked, I'm sure, in Tokyo, in Redmond, Washington, in Kyoto. He told IGN that's what everybody's working on right now, because when you start off the next generation, you've got to be ready to absorb billions of dollars in losses. And is the industry, given all the layoffs and everything we're going through right now, is the industry ready for that? Look at Sony laying off 900 people, a lot of them in the UK. My 2 eldest daughters work at EA. They're all right, but they're always looking over their shoulder. He added, so I think the answer to your question, those are the questions that are being asked right now, and it'll be tied around. Do we continue to develop silicon? The role of AI, what does that mean? You can't look away from that. Are these companies willing to go another round of multi-billion? And at the same time, you're gearing up for another cycle where gamers may not embrace the console and just say, you know what, I don't need this. Times are tough. I've got my phone. I'm enjoying what I've got on my phone. There's plenty of games that I can play. Failing that, of course, I have my PC or my Mac. I can do whatever I need to do there. And do I really need to be spending what could be $500, $600 on a bespoke piece of hardware just to play games? So both the companies and gamers are asking themselves this question. Peter Moore said the future of console generations had come into question during the back end of the Xbox 360 generation. Yeah, the Xbox 360, during the back end of that, you have that concern. If you were thinking then of something that launched in the mid 2000s, what does the end of the decade look like and how long the cycles were? Usually 5-6 years. And what does it look like in 5 or 6 years? Are we going to need another? Well, the answer ultimately was yes, but the questions were being asked back then. And why? Because you've got faster, cheaper broadband, more ubiquitous in just about everybody's home. Just like in those days, the industry veteran said he was confident both Sony and Microsoft will be questioning what a future console iteration would look like and how it would benefit consumers. What I'm saying is the questions are being asked, as they have been for the last 20 years. Are we ready to grind our loins financially for battle and all of the cost of development, silicon development? What is the PlayStation 6? What is it that the PlayStation 6 can do that the PS5 can't, that would make people jump from PS5? Or the same with Xbox, the same with Switch, right? God forbid it's just incremental. And I think that the companies are also looking at that. What can we do to extend this life cycle? And then if you're Microsoft and you're Phil Spencer, you've got Satya Nadella coming in and saying, all right, what is the future here? And how does this play into the biggest strategy of cloud Azure with AI? What are we doing with AI game development? How do you make your games faster, cheaper, with less people? These are the questions that I think are being asked. So that is what Peter Moore, the former head of Xbox as well, you got to love how he threw that loins bit in there. He did, yes, that's what the quote said. We're going to grind our loins here for another console generation. The answer, Peter, is yes, of course we are. We need to. But I thought that this was a really great write-up by VGC because obviously they included as much context as they possibly could. That was a lot there from Peter Moore. And Peter Moore is somebody that I would definitely want to pay attention to. It feels like it's been a long time since we've heard from him. But yeah, he was there for the Sega Dreamcast. He was there with the Xbox 360. He knows his stuff here. He was obviously the head of EA. So he's very, very, very well-rounded in the gaming industry. He no longer works in the gaming industry, but, he is basically sitting here saying that right now Sony and Microsoft are asking that question. Do we go another round? Now, I do believe we have the answer to this question already. I don't think the question is, will there be a PlayStation 6? I don't think the question is, will there be another Xbox console? Because Microsoft themselves recently confirmed that, yes, there will be another Xbox console, and they're saying it's going to be the biggest technical leap that we've ever seen. So Microsoft is clearly showing commitment there. But I think the idea is that truly going to be the last generation? And how well are the PlayStation 6 and this next generation Xbox, how well are these consoles going to be received? I'm seeing a lot of interesting conversations happen across the internet, on YouTube, in my comment section, on Reddit, on Twitter. People basically beginning to ask the question, should I care about the PlayStation 5? I mean, the conversation between Xbox and the PlayStation are different. The conversations are different because on the Xbox side of things, a lot of people are feeling like, well, yeah, now that they're starting to put some of their games on PlayStation 5, I mean, I really don't know what the point of buying an Xbox console is. And I've been saying for a long time, and I think a lot of people have kind of gotten to this point, which is just like, look, the Xbox console's there if you want it. And the next generation from Microsoft, I think it's just going to simply be, hey, this is the best place to play Xbox games, right? You can get Game Pass over here. So please consider buying an Xbox. I think that's basically what it's going to boil down to. It's going to be very different from what we've seen pretty much every generation. On the PlayStation side of things, the conversation is still different because Sony's doing something that Microsoft isn't, and that is they are still hanging on to exclusives, at least for some period of time. We know that Sony is not diving into the whole, hey, let's go day and date on PC, at least not yet, with their big single-player games. They're also not being clear when their games are going to come to PC. Sony's not saying, just wait a year, just wait 2 years. I mean, they've said before, like it could be a year, it could be 2 years. They've also said it could be 2 years, it could be 3 years. So the messaging has been a bit mixed, but they're not drawing some like line in the sand saying that, look, every PlayStation game that comes out is going to be a timed exclusive for this long, and then you can play it on PC. There's also been the conversation, is Sony going to start putting their games onto Xbox? Right? We're seeing Microsoft is beginning to port their games to PlayStation. Hey, is Sony going to reciprocate? Are they going to port their games to the Xbox Series X and S? Even Phil Spencer said that it would be great to have Helldivers 2. I don't know who it helps to not have that game on Xbox. But it seems pretty clear, at least to me right now, that Sony's not going to do that. They don't seem in any rush to do something like that. And I think it's because Sony is, if they are asking this question internally, what is the future of console? I think Sony isn't sitting there saying, like, console will be the most relevant way to play games forever, for the next 3, 4, 5 decades. I don't think they're looking at it like that. But what I do think Sony is looking at is they're like, you know what? The PS5, yeah, that still has to be the priority because it's working for us. Sure, the margins are a little bit thinner, but it's still working. The model still works. The game development side, that's a whole nother topic, which we've talked about extensively. But the console side of it, it is working. So who's to say that the PlayStation 6 won't also work, right? Truthfully, it seems like that's basically in Sony's hands. How much are you going to put into this console, Sony? How much are you going to put into the PlayStation 6 to make it so PlayStation 5 players say, you know what? I do want to go to the PlayStation 6. Of course, people like me and probably many people like you, they're going to be there day one because we're the enthusiasts. Yeah, I want a PlayStation 6 day one. I want a PS5 Pro day one. But I know that for a lot of people, it's not that simple. A lot of people really do need to take a step back and think, do I really need to upgrade to the PlayStation 6? People still are kind of feeling that way a little bit about the PlayStation 5. A lot of people saying during the course of the PlayStation 5 generation that, man, I don't know if it was really worth it to upgrade. Now, I personally think it was, but I can understand why some people, or for some people, maybe it wasn't. And so the question, I think, truly becomes, again, not will there be a PlayStation 6? Will there be another Xbox? There will be. The question becomes, is that the last stop for these consoles? Obviously, nobody knows. I would love to be able to give you that answer. I'll do my best. I think we will still see consoles. I think the future of console is not really that. It's not that concerning. It's not as in jeopardy as I think some people believe it is. I think what we are seeing right now is an industry as a whole struggling. And I think because of that, we're seeing the consoles, which is a big part of the video game industry, also struggling to a certain extent. The PS5 is still doing well, of course, but just generally speaking, there's a kind of unease in the air. Sony isn't breaking records with the PS5 anymore. The Xbox consoles have slowed down to seemingly a halt sales-wise. The Switch is at the end of its life cycle, and we have no idea how the next generation of Switch is going to be received. It seems like it's going to be received well, but the question, will it do as good as the Switch that we see now? Is it going to be able to keep up? What about the PlayStation 6? Well, it's hard to really think about that when it's like the question really should be, what about the remainder of the PlayStation 5 generation? Is the PlayStation 5 going to hit 100 million units? It seems like it will. But I do think in order for that to happen, Sony has to remain committed to their current model. They need to come out and say, yes, we still have a lot of exclusive games lined up, not just for 2025, but for 2026, for 2027, for 2028, and even beyond. Of course, there will likely be some cross-gen, or maybe there won't. Maybe Sony will do things differently with the PlayStation 6. Maybe Sony will say, you know what, let's go back to the way we did things with every other console generation except for what we did with the PlayStation 5. Let's not do cross-gen. Hey, let's have a Bloodborne PlayStation 6 remake just for PlayStation 6. That'll sell some units. What about The Last of Us Part 3? Yeah, let's make that PlayStation 6 only as well. If Sony really wants to sell their console, I mean, if they really want to get back to it, and they don't, they want to, I guess, answer that question very clearly, What is the future of the console? They could do that. But when we know that these games will eventually make their way to PC, does it really make much sense to do that? Will that just end up frustrating the PlayStation 5 audience? I don't think the future of consoles are in jeopardy. I think the future of the console is going to be just fine. But I do think that the console market has truly peaked. I do believe that. I don't want to believe that. I wish it was the other way around. But I do think that when you look at the landscape, when you look at PlayStation, when you look at Xbox, when you look at Nintendo, it seems like we have really hit that ceiling. We've reached that upper limit of, I don't think it's going to go beyond this point. We just talked yesterday about the comments that Sean Layden made, the former head of PlayStation. He pointed that out. He said that we just don't go beyond 250 million users. That is the upper limit. That is the threshold. And it seems like what we're witnessing are companies, businesses, corporations with a desire to continuously grow that have hit a ceiling in this particular market. I don't think the answer is to abandon that market. I don't think the answer is to forsake that market and neglect it and just basically treat it like, well, we're not getting anything from you anymore. I think that's a huge mistake. And again, it's one that I don't think Sony's going to make. But I wouldn't be surprised if by the time we get to, let's say, the PlayStation 6, by the time we get to the middle of the PlayStation 6 life cycle, I wouldn't be surprised if we see the numbers and it says, yeah, the PlayStation 6 is maybe a little bit behind the PS5 and the PS4. Seems like the PlayStation console might be slowing down a little bit. I think we all know what's going to happen with the next generation Xbox. Well, at least I think we all feel like we have a good idea of what's going to happen, and that is it's probably going to fail pretty badly because we are seeing Microsoft just move further away from the console than they ever have. And the Xbox console, I think, is going to be the first one from the three companies that is just going to be in this place of, we're not really trying to sell this thing. Like, of course, we would like you to buy it, but it's not really our priority. So if it appeals to you, go ahead, buy it. But it's probably not even going to be the most appealing console out there, you know? And I think what that's going to result in is a lot of people choosing to not buy the Xbox console. A lot of people are going to say, okay, well, you're not forcing me to buy your console. Nintendo is. Sony kind of is. So I'll just stick with Sony and Nintendo. I think that's what's interesting is we see Sony in this kind of awkward middle ground where Sony is not forcing anybody necessarily, permanently anyway. Sony's in this awkward middle ground where they're like, hey, yeah, we want you to buy the console, right? Like, this is what we want you to do, but we are still putting some of our, not just some at this point, we are putting our games on PC. You just got to wait. If you're patient, if you wait, you don't have to buy our console. You will miss out. There will be FOMO potentially, but if that's not a problem for you, then there we are. We have Chris B coming in, dropping 5 membership gifts for us. Chris B getting us started off here. Whoa, why is that so large? We got some large notifications going on today. Chris, thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you continuing to show support here to the channel. Let me add that to the counter really quickly. Again, sorry for the... Are they larger or am I just losing it? I feel like the notifications are larger today. So guys, let's get some W's flowing in the chat for our good friend Chris here. He's been showing the channel and the community some really solid support. Thank you for that, man. When are the reps coming back? When we hit another goal, I'll do some reps at the end of the stream. I'm going to try to clean up the streams a little bit, to be honest. Not that I don't think they've been that bad, but it's just, I noticed that I'm going to have to segment things. I know you guys love having Boss in here, seeing Boss get his treats and stuff like that, doing some reps. I love doing that stuff too. But I think what I'll have to do is make sure I get through the topics first and get through the discussions. And then at the end, we'll have like a dedicated segment for stuff like that. Because I have seen some people are getting a little bit frustrated where they're like, man, it seems like you're, like Boss is distracting you like every like 30 seconds and you can't really get through a thought. And yeah, I do feel that way too. I love Boss, man, but he definitely does that a little bit. So less sidetracking rants? No, the side, like if you're talking about the side quest rants, no, those are here to stay. But those are born from topics that we discuss, right? I'm talking about just getting like totally pulled out of a gaming conversation. You know what I mean? Chris Brown here with a super chat says, people are too caught up in exclusives. Just play where you want is the future. If playing on PlayStation is where you want to play, then why does it matter? I mean, my gut tells me that's correct, Chris, right? Like, I do see the value in exclusives. I do think exclusives will always play a vital role, regardless of whether or not what you're saying is true. Because I think we could exist in a world where it's just that simple. Just go where you want, right? Everything's available on everything. Play where you want. And, these companies will just make a little bit of extra money off of these, off of these decisions that people are making. But the thing that doesn't make sense to me about that, like the kind of gaming landscape that you're painting, because I do think it's not bad. And maybe in the long-term future, like many, many, many years from now, that is what it could become. It seems like there is some type of, there's a removal of competition, not in the game development space. Right? Like, of course, the competition on the game development side is not going to change. Sony is going to want to make better games than Microsoft. That's just how it's going to be. Every company is going to try to make the best games possible to get the most sales, to get the most notoriety, to get the most awards, whatever it might be. But I think the competition from the storefronts in particular is what will be taken out of the equation, or at the very least, that is going to be something that, if that future happens where it's just play where you want, it doesn't matter, that's something that it would require like every gaming platform holder to just say, it's not that important to us. And I don't think that's going to happen. I feel like we kind of see that with Valve, right? Where Valve just kind of has this nonchalant attitude where they're like, you can play here if you want. We kind of don't care if you don't. We're doing just fine. Right? And it seems to work for them. But at the same time, though, like Valve is also, they're not making a console. They are PC, right? So maybe inherently, because that's where Valve is, that's where Steam is, maybe inherently it just made it easy for them to kind of have that attitude of just like, well, there's tens of millions, hundreds of millions. I don't know how many PCs are on the market. Let me see. How many PCs are on the market? 2 billion. Damn. Well, that's a lot. We have to assume if that 2 billion number, certainly it's a much smaller percentage for PCs that are capable of gaming. But yeah, you look at a number like that, and no wonder why they can have such a nonchalant attitude, because they are the dominant storefront on PC, man. So it's like, I don't think they have to worry about anything. But I think that's where things are different for Sony, where Sony, their storefront as of right now, is exclusive to their own consoles, to their own bespoke hardware. And I guess the question becomes, how does Sony move that to a different place effectively? And that's the key word, effectively, because of course they can move their storefront to PC if they want, but how's that going to look? What is Sony just going to come out and say, yeah, we're going to compete with Steam now? Good luck. They're too entrenched. You're not gonna move people over from Steam to the PlayStation Store on PC. So this to me is why I do think that I do agree. I think people are too caught up in the exclusive conversation, myself included. But I do think that this right here is why Sony's just not, number one, not going to stop making consoles anytime soon. And number two, why they will still push exclusives, even if we know they're timed, right? It's like it's not going to matter. Hey, you know that big, awesome new AAA first-party game we just showed from Sony Bend or from Naughty Dog? Yeah, you're going to have to buy a PlayStation 5 or a PlayStation 6 to play that. And then, there's always going to be that person that's like, that's okay, I'll wait till it comes to PC. And that's fine too. But you are likely going to be waiting 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, sometimes 4. You don't know how long you're going to be waiting. So, in other words, there's just going to be a clear divide, I think, going forward, where I would love for it to be as simple as games could be everywhere and you can just pick where you want to play. Like, do you like the PlayStation console best and that's where you want to play? Buy it, and that's where you can play your games and you can gain access to everything. Do you like the Xbox console better? Buy it, and you can play everything. I would love to see that world where it just doesn't matter, but it will, because those consoles cost money to manufacture. They cost money to prototype and bring to and R&D and bring to market. And they're the idea that these consoles can just be manufactured just for the hell of it. Sure, maybe Microsoft can do that, because Microsoft, they understand. They understand that they can't just say, bye, we're out, because it's too abrupt. They understand that if we're going to leave the console market, it's going to have to happen slowly. And, they do have, frankly, look, I know we talk about Xbox sales not being great, but frankly, they still have enough market share to justify a console. That is the truth. They might not be selling nearly as well as the PlayStation or the Nintendo, but there's enough. It's not like they have like 2 or 3% market share. If it were to get down to that point, yeah, Microsoft would be done. They would say we're leaving the console market. MBG, are you asking, does Steam have first-party exclusives? I know that PC has some exclusive games, but I don't know that they're from. Well, I don't know. I mean, I think there are some Valve titles, right, that are not available on console. Only Half-Life Alyx. Are you sure? I mean, I know that there are other like PC exclusives, but I don't think they're purposely made exclusive. I think it's just, like Counter-Strike. Is Counter-Strike on console? I don't think so. Counter-Strike, the world's most popular online action game and first-person shooter for the PC, makes its console debut exclusively on Xbox and Xbox Live. How long ago was this? Counter-Strike for Xbox features single-player missions. Oh, holy shit. This is the original Xbox. Wait, hold on now. You can still play it on PS3. That's funny. Jeff B. Gaming, thank you for the super chat, buddy. Yeah, I guess it's Counter-Strike too. MBG, exclusives matter. They push innovation and make each platform unique. Every industry has its modern gamers is out of touch with this reality. You're saying every industry has exclusives and modern gamers are out of touch with this reality. I mean, I agree. Yeah, like the conversation about exclusivity, I do think people need to just let that go. Because I think that when you say modern gamers are out of touch with reality, I don't know that it's so much that, I mean, certainly some are, but I don't think it's so much that as much as it's just, I think people are a little bit unsure of how to talk about it. what terminology do we use? What terminology matters? I mean, truly, right? And again, it kind of gets into the semantics of it, but this is kind of where we are, where people are like, yo, PlayStation doesn't have exclusives when we know they're going to PC. It's like, well, to say PlayStation doesn't have exclusives implies that there is no reason for somebody to buy a PS5 or a PlayStation 6 in the future, presumably. And that's also not true. So like neither of those statements are true. Like on the most technical level, it's like, yeah, I guess PlayStation doesn't have exclusives anymore, right? Because we know that they support PC now. But that's where it's like, I don't think it's wise to frame it that way, because it's just like, well, what do you say when Wolverine comes out? When Ghost of Tsushima 2 comes out? What do you say? Do you say they're not exclusive? No, you say they're exclusive because you can only play them on the PlayStation 5. If Wolverine comes to PC in the year 2028 or 2029, what does that have to do in the, for somebody who wants to play Wolverine in the year 2026, 2027? You see what I'm saying? So I think it's not so much that people, again, are out of touch. It's that they don't really know how to talk about it in a way that makes sense or in a practical way, right? Because to me, that is the most practical way to acknowledge it, where it will be exclusive until it's not. There you go. End of conversation. Same with Xbox. Is Hellblade 2 going to be exclusive? Yes, until it's not. Presumably. Well, I don't know, actually. This is where I think things get even messier, because on the Xbox side, well, Hellblade is releasing on PC day one. So I guess in that sense, should we call it an exclusive? In that sense, people are going to call it a console exclusive. So you can see it's really just the framing of it all, I think, has just gotten very messy and very disorganized and disheveled. And I think because of that, people are kind of desperate to get back to just simpler times, whether that be nothing's exclusive or the three console manufacturers each make their exclusive games. Because the one thing we can say, whether that was the better way to do it or not, it was simpler. If you want the Nintendo games, you buy the Nintendo machine. If you want the PlayStation games, you buy the PlayStation machine. If you want the Xbox games, you buy the Xbox machine. There's no doubt that was just simpler, and it was easier for people to understand what's where do I got to go to play what. Now these days, because I guess these companies are, again, they're trying to find ways to maximize profits and justify these large budgets, they seem like they're just kind of all over the place. I mean, just look at the Xbox business update and that whole situation, and how like Microsoft literally needed to come out and talk directly to everybody for like 20 minutes about, well, we're doing all this weird stuff now and we don't know what's going to happen. We'll see. Like, that's where we are. And that is definitely annoying for us, because it's like, so you're basically just telling us you don't know what's going to happen. You're telling us you don't really have a plan. You're just trying to see what works and what doesn't. And it creates very muddy, very confusing messaging, because what we are used to are these companies just flat out being like, this is our product. This is where you can play it. And here's what you need to buy. And that's it. Like, that's it. It's just that simple. And it's just not that way anymore, even with Sony. So I think that one thing, I will say what this does do, right? I don't think it can happen for the PlayStation 5 generation. I think it's too late for the PlayStation 5 generation. But what this can lead to is a great opportunity Sony will have with the PlayStation 6 whenever they are deciding, like, okay, this is when we're going to reveal it and talk about the next generation. This is something that they can kind of look back on and look, figure it out now. So that way, when the PlayStation 6 generation rolls around, the communication is crystal clear, on point. There's no confusion whatsoever. Everybody knows the score and what's going on from top to bottom, you know? And I think Microsoft, same thing. Same thing. Microsoft has another generation of console they're planning on doing. I think this is, I hate to say this, but I feel like the PS5 generation and the Xbox Series generation are essentially just like, we're going to look back and be like, yeah, this was the generation where Sony and Microsoft basically had to do some homework and figure some things out and learn. And I think that going forward with the next Xbox, with the next PlayStation, by the time we get there, I think they're going to figure these things out, and they're going to have like clear-cut answers. That's my hope. Maybe that's just wishful thinking. But this entire generation was basically screwed in terms of consistency from the get-go because of the pandemic. And it seemingly has only just gotten worse each year since. So right now, the work is being done to figure it out. It's why Microsoft is experimenting with putting their games on PlayStation. It's why Sony's experimenting with putting their games on PC. And it's why we're sitting here in March of 2024 basically saying, so what is going on with the future of these companies and these consoles? If only things could be as simple as they are for Nintendo for both of these companies. I will say I'm jealous of Nintendo in that sense. If you're a Nintendo fan, you would at least know that, like, well, there's going to be a new console and there's going to be exclusive games for it, and that's a guarantee, and that's just how it goes. You know what I mean? Whether it'll work or not, I mean, it seems like it will, but I just wish everything could be that simple. We have Veneno saying Steam has 120 million MAU. They are the only ones growing. I don't know. I think Sony's still growing. In December, they announced that they had, was it 113? Yeah, it says PlayStation set an MAU record in December of 2023, 123 million users. This was announced in January of 2024 at CES. Earlier, PlayStation reported 107 monthly active users. That was in September of 2023. So I wouldn't say that Steam is the only one seeing growth. Sony definitely is too. And that is huge. Like, that is huge. And that is a new record for Sony. So when you see stuff like that, you do have to question, like, well, are things really going that badly for PlayStation? Probably not. But I think the concern is kind of like what we saw with PlayStation Plus, where PlayStation Plus kept growing and growing and growing. It's like, we got 40 million monthly active users, 43 million, 45 million, 46 million, 47. And then it just stopped. It just stopped. And now it's seemingly, I mean, they're not reporting numbers anymore, but that basically tells you, like, it's starting to go down. And so I guess the concern is, like, is that about to be what happens with PlayStation's monthly active users? Is 123 million going to be the peak? Because I'll tell you, if they fear that is, like, how much further can we really go beyond 123 million with just the consoles? Right? If they're like probably not far, or we're starting to see that number go down, that's why you're going to see Sony be like, well, you're saying that's with PS3 and PS4 included, but that's still good though, right? I mean, it makes sense that PS3 and PS4 would be included because, I mean, they're both connected to the PlayStation Network. Also, kind of funny to think that there's at least like apparently a couple million PS3 users that are registered for this. I don't know about you guys, but that is pretty funny to me. It's like, wow, there's still a couple million people out there booting up their PS3s every day. I mean, damn. Good for them. All for MGS4. Probably a lot of them. Yeah, If I had to guess, probably a lot of those people are trying to play MGS4. Maybe older Call of Duty games and stuff. Garrett says they are not. The problem is corpos have to make more and more profits every year. They can't just settle with good profit. That's, yeah, I don't want to get into that conversation too deeply again, but that is the frustrating part of this is I see people like asking all the time, like, if the gaming industry is this big and there's this much money in the gaming industry, what is the problem? And that's the problem. The problem is it's all about the growing of the profits and the profit margins. And I get it. Like, that is the bottom line of all business. But I just think that they're, you do have to question sometimes, like, why can't it just be good enough sometimes? Not all the time. Like, of course, don't get complacent and run your company into the ground and get left behind and don't do anything to progress. But sometimes what's wrong with, at a time like this, right? Just saying, okay, let's just be okay with what is and focus on maybe, I don't know, getting better in some areas, of course, but it just seems to me like there is some kind of intense greed at the heart of it sometimes, Constant growth is not sustainable. Yeah, I think that's a true statement. I think that's absolutely a true statement. Constant growth is not sustainable. It's not, because there is a cost associated with that, and that cost, I think, sometimes is just not worth it. I think this is why you see so many gaming companies make such big mistakes, obvious mistakes at times, where it's like, what are you doing? Like, nobody wants this. Nobody asked for this. Or this just seems like a dumb idea. I mean, a lot of people got that way when PlayStation a couple of years ago announced that they were pursuing live service aggressively. There was a lot of pushback from the PlayStation audience where they were like, what are you doing? Like, no, literally, I don't think it was literal, but, the general sentiment is like, nobody asked for this, Sony. Like, we just asked for some multiplayer games, not an entire takeover with live service. And, something like that, again, it's driven by, they see the numbers, they see the money, they see where it's flowing, and they say, I want a piece of that pie, a large piece, preferably. Last quarter, we made $1 billion. This quarter, we made $1 billion again. Clearly, we are doing something wrong. Dude, exactly. That to me is what's wild. And this is why it sucks to see the console being treated the way it is right now, because it's like, well, the console market just simply isn't enough anymore. Like, what are you talking about? Like 250 million total users, that's the console install base. That's massive. Like, sure, it may not be as massive as the smartphone install base and market, or even the PC install base, but it's like, these are dedicated gaming machines. So these are customers that you will likely get good money from, because these are the ones that are going out and buying these dedicated gaming machines. This is why I never enjoyed seeing companies like Sony and Microsoft say, yeah, we want to chase the mobile market. Like, and this is no offense. I'm not trying to offend anybody who plays games on their phone. My wife plays games on her phone sometimes, and I don't mean to come off this way, but it's just like, I just feel like that has to be separate from video game companies who are actually trying to deliver, like, truly, I don't want to say meaningful, because I think that's too strong of a word, but gaming companies that are trying to push the medium forward. That's what I'm trying to say. Gaming companies who are trying to progress things, but in a more not in a volatile way. I want to make that clear, because you could argue, like, well, isn't that the whole reason they're running into problems? They're trying to progress too much, too far, too quick. Steady progression. I think you guys understand what I'm saying. Where it's like new generations, new technology, new types of games, stuff like that. I feel like mobile gaming is it is the opposite of that. I think mobile gaming is just total regression. Like basically reduce it down to the most basic common denominator that you can. And I think that's why so many of these games are just, they're so ridiculous in nature. They're so simplistic. And there's, again, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that. I just don't feel too good when I see, like a company like Sony or a company like Microsoft, where I do view them as these are the companies that should be trying to push these things forward. And they're like, but what if we could get those billions of people to play our games? And it's like, you're not going to, unless you make very, 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 very different types of games. And please, God, don't make those types of games. There's enough of those games out there. Yeah, I know. You're saying I'm looking at it through the eyes of a gamer. These companies look at it like, why only have 250 million when you can have 300 million? I know. It's the nature of the beast. We have Vic Vicious. Sorry to keep you waiting, buddy. Member for 9 months saying, I think the whole situation got really complicated when they started buying studios. Games that were available for all consoles are now exclusives. Yeah, that I think, I'm assuming you're talking more so about Microsoft here. I think you're right. I think that it was never going to be that simple. I think there was a time where when you look at Microsoft, when they acquired Bethesda, it still wasn't that simple, but we kind of all felt like, well, their games are going to be exclusive now, right? Like it's a little weird. It feels strange because they have a lot of games. They have a lot of IP that was multi-platform, and now it's just going to go exclusive. And Microsoft even then was a little bit wishy-washy on it. And then we saw Starfield and, stuff like that. And we're like, oh, okay, I guess that answers the question. It's exclusive. And then right after, it's like, wait, hold on, actually. We just got Activision as well. Maybe we're not going to do exclusives as often as you thought, or something like that. I think you're right. I think that complicates the entire situation because, can you be arguably the biggest or one of the biggest publishers in the world for video games and also have your own ecosystem with your own console, your own hardware, and say, and this is the only place you can get it? I think you can, but I think it's one of those things where it's like, do the numbers add up though? See, I think that's the whole thing is, if you listen to what Sean Layden said recently, Sean Layden said that PlayStation started with a focus on third party. That's what PlayStation was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a third party focus. And the reason for that is because, well, Sony was just trying to get in the door and make PlayStation just a viable place where you can get all your games. But it was also, and I don't think Sean really mentioned this part, but it was also, well, because since we are offering the storefront and we're offering the platform, like we just can make money off of your stuff. Like we don't have to make the games, right? You make the games, we help sell those games for you, and we take a piece of the pie. That is kind of one of the biggest advantages of, well, that's not kind of, it is one of the biggest advantages and one of the biggest incentives to be a platform holder. And when Sean Layden said when it came to the first party stuff from Sony, the whole idea was to help grow that, right? Like the idea was we don't want to take market share from EA or Ubisoft or Activision, so on and so forth. We just want to kind of help grow that potential market and also be a part of it. Now, I think it's of course, Sony's going to make money off that. So they are, in a way, still going to take some of that market share. But I kind of get what he's saying there. And that's where I think you're right when you say that when they started buying Microsoft, that is, like when they started buying not just studios, but publishers in particular. Yeah, I think that got kind of messy. You're saying there's some breaking news or something on... You're saying there's something regarding a Last of Us PC announcement on the gaming leaks and sub. All right, let me see here. Hold on. Okay, so we have Silk Knight, who we'll see just how reliable they are, but again, this is the individual who told us about the Ghost of Tsushima PC port, and he was correct. He says Sony's upcoming PC game, The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, its announcement is expected next month. Although the exact date is unknown, there will be a longer than usual period between announcement date and the release day. Okay. Interesting. If I had to guess, the reason for that is because of The Last of Us HBO. So I think if this person is correct, if Sony's going to announce The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered for PC next month, I could see them announcing it, saying it's coming out early 2025, because that's when the second season of the show is going to drop. So I think that would be a smart move on Sony's part. It's like, if you are truly looking to maximize sales, that would be the smarter way to do it. Let me see if he's saying anything else while I'm on his account. So this is the same person, by the way, who claims that Ghost of Tsushima 2 is going to be announced at the next PlayStation Showcase sometime this summer, or as he said, a mid-year event. So it could be May, June, July. This person says anything on Silent Hill 2 Remake and what to expect at the showcase. He replies by saying everything depends on Konami. The game is ready. I'm not surprised by that. I do believe that. It seemed like for some time like Silent Hill 2 is just done and ready to ship. And Konami's just like, I don't know. Should we do it? When should we release this game? I feel like Konami's still very weird, man. Like, I don't think they truly know what they're doing, and they're just trying their best to like seem like they know what they're doing. But they've been out of the game for too long, man. Well, there you go. A little bit of off the cuff reporting there. Last of Us Part 2 Remastered for PC apparently coming. The announcement is coming next month. Bungie confirms collaboration with Ghostbusters. Well, that's kind of weird. Huh. All right. Well, anyway, getting back to the topic here. To continue on. I mean, I don't know how much more I have left to say, but I want to throw in some conclusive thoughts here, or, final thoughts, if you will. I think the future of the console is a relatively bright one, maybe with some dim spots, right? If it's not bright, then maybe you could just view it as, if the golden age of console gaming has truly come and gone, and it's just going to slowly dwindle in the coming, 5, 8, 10 years, then I don't think the lights are going to go out completely. I think we could see a dimming of the lights, but I don't think that necessarily has to be a problem. That's how I feel. I feel that the PlayStation 5 and the PS5 Pro are going to continue to do well. I do not anticipate that at some point over the next 4 to 5 years, the PS5 is going to hit a brick wall and sales are just going to tank and interest is just going to drop. If I had to give a prediction on how much interest will there be with the next PlayStation generation, with the PlayStation 6, I think there's going to be high interest, very high interest. I think Sony is going to do everything they can, like by far, to entice people. Like, you're going to want to buy a PlayStation 6. Trust us. Don't worry about what we're doing on PC. You're going to want to buy a PlayStation 6. I think Sony's going to try to kick the door down with the PlayStation 6. They did that with the PS5 successfully. Granted, I think their whole live service push may have got them off track a bit, but they did do that effectively at the launch of the PS5. They created an unreal amount of hype. And I am still convinced, by the way, I just want to say, I firmly believe the PS5 would be tracking well ahead of the PS4 by now if there was never any supply shortage. The supply shortage was insane. I will never forget that. It was wild seeing people basically saying for months and months and months and years on my channel, dude, every single video, every single stream, people leaving comments like, I still can't get a PS5. Like, I just can't get it. And I just can't help but think, man, what if all those people who couldn't have gotten a PS5 were able to get them? I think the PS5 would have gotten off to a much stronger start than it did. And I think we would see higher sales than we do right now. So I think we're going to see the PS5 close out very strong. I think a driving reason for that is going to be Sony does have more AAA exclusives in development that are targeting the latter half of this generation. But I do predict that Sony is not going to care what Microsoft does with the next generation Xbox, nor do I think Sony is going to care that much about the Nintendo Switch 2. I think the way Sony is viewing it is we still are the console market leader, right? And we're going to continue down that road. We are going to approach the PlayStation 6 with that mentality that we still are the console market leader, right? And we're going to, well, I don't know, would that be Nintendo at this point now though? Because the Nintendo Switch has sold like 140 million units. I don't know, it's a little weird because like the Nintendo Switch is considered to be the what generation of console does the Nintendo Switch fall under? That's Gen 7 or 8? Hold on. No, that's 8. Wait. Oh, that's so crazy. What? That's so weird that it says the 7th generation of consoles is from 2005 to 2017. And then the 8th is from 2012 to present. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Man, sometimes I think it's just easy to forget how long these generations last. So the Nintendo Switch is considered an 8th generation console. Well, that's what it says here. It says the Switch is categorized under Gen 8 with the PS4, the Xbox One, the Wii U, and the Switch. The 9th gen consoles are considered the PS5, the Series X, and the S. Let me see. Is the Switch Gen 8 or Gen 9? Nintendo Switch is the successor of the Wii U, Gen 8. Therefore, Nintendo Switch is Gen 9. Interesting. Oh, so I guess it. All right. Yeah. I mean, I guess that. That tracks. That tracks. That's so weird, though, right? Because like the Switch definitely doesn't feel. That's a tricky one, man. I think Nintendo really kind of messed this whole thing up. Because the Wii U is definitely a Gen 8 console, but it failed so bad. I would still count the Switch as Gen 8. I'll be honest. I can't view the Switch as Gen 9. Well, I don't know. Then again, didn't Hogwarts Legacy and Mortal Kombat launch on the Switch? So it's like still getting Gen 9 games. I guess it truly is a hybrid. It's a hybrid of Gen 8 and Gen 9. Well, anyway, what the hell was I saying prior to that? I got really confused. Yeah, both of those games look like train wrecks. Broken train wrecks, man. I mean, can we really say that they're Gen 9 games at that point? Well, I guess the question then becomes, what are we going to consider the Switch 2? Are we going to consider it Gen 10 or Gen 9? I mean, to me, it's going to be Gen 9, right? Switch is 9th gen, but runs like 7th. MBG, it's Gen 8. Stop raising my blood pressure. All right. Well, yeah. Well, anyway, I do think that it's hard to factor in Nintendo here with this conversation, because it's like, I think what I was trying to say is, I do believe that when Sony approaches the PlayStation 6, I think they're going to approach it extremely aggressively. I think that's what I'm trying to say. I think Sony's going to approach it with a mentality of, we don't care what Nintendo's doing with the Switch 2, which by the time the PlayStation 6 comes out will be like 3 or 4 years old. We don't care what Xbox is doing with their next generation console, because they're starting to put their games onto our platform now. I think, to be honest, I think we're going to see Sony potentially get more aggressive with the PlayStation 6 than we've ever seen them get before. I mean, Sony has always been aggressive with their new gen console launches. They were aggressive with the PS1. They were aggressive with the PS2. They were still aggressive with the PS3, but in the wrong way, where they were like, we'll make the most powerful machine and you'll get a second job to buy it. And then they were like, you know what? That was a mistake. Gen 4, or sorry, not Gen 4, not Gen 4, but the PS4, they were also very aggressive, but they were also humbled. The PS5, I would say they were just as aggressive, but they were also caught off guard by the pandemic. So was Microsoft. So this is where I think, and I know it's like strange to be talking about the PlayStation 6 generation, but we are talking about, we are talking about future console generations. Oh yeah, my bad. You're saying, so MBG, as you were saying about the console leader, fact check yourself. So yeah, okay, that's why I was talking about the Switch. Yeah, so I guess it depends, right? Like, Sony is the market leader if we view the Switch as a Gen 8 console. Sony is the market leader because they, PS5 sales. If we count the Switch as a Gen 9, then Nintendo is technically the market leader. This is where I feel like it's really difficult. See, if we're looking at it through that lens, I'll tell you, I don't see the Switch as the market leader. I'll tell you why in just a moment, because I want to shout out Jake Skew28, because he's now 28. Jake, thank you so much, man, for dropping a membership gift. I appreciate you showing consistent support here on the channel. Pretty much every stream dropping a membership gift. Big shout out to all of you guys who continue to support the channel. So
thank you.
Thank you, Jake. But here's why I don't view the Nintendo Switch as the market leader, because in order to do so, we would have to count the Nintendo Switch as a proper Gen 9 console. How could I count the Nintendo Switch as a proper Gen 9 console when hardly any games currently are being developed for it, third party wise? The PS5 and the Xbox Series X and S are getting the overwhelming lion's share, of these third-party titles. And so I will say that when the Switch 2 comes out, that's what I would consider like the proper 9th gen console from Nintendo that will now compete directly against the PS5 and the PS5 Pro. But it all really has to do with timing. Titus Crow, you're saying, why can I gift memberships to a boxing channel on this iPad, but not MBG? Something is up. Yeah, that's really strange. I don't know what would be causing that. If you really want to gift, a workaround for that, if you're on your iPad, is open up Safari and log in on your YouTube account there, and then join the stream. It should give you that option. I've had people do that before. But yeah, that is very strange. I don't know why it's doing that. That's actually disappointing to hear. But yes, getting back to the PlayStation 6 and just my final thoughts here on the future console generations, this is what I think. I think when the PlayStation, of course I don't know what the future holds, but I do think that when the PlayStation 6 launches, let's say in 2028, I'm assuming there won't be another pandemic. I'm assuming that things will be much more stable than they were in 2020 and even than they are now. And I think what this is going to allow for is Sony to do a proper, aggressive push for the PlayStation 6 that communicates a message very clearly. Here's a new generation of PlayStation console, and we got games for it, and we want you to buy it, and we're going to make sure you buy it. So here you go, right? Like, it's going to be affordable. I mean, there's like, people have this notion in their head where they're like, well, if Xbox doesn't make a proper next-gen console, then Microsoft is going to, then Sony is going to make $1,000 console. Like, that's not even remotely a possibility. Like, I've tried to explain to people before that you don't have to worry about that happening because, dudes, no one would buy that console. Like, Sony would effectively kill their own console brand by doing that. Could they offer like a 2 SKU model for the PlayStation 6 if they really wanted to? Yeah, of course they could. But even then, I don't think they're going to do that. I'm telling you, I think what Sony's going to do with the PlayStation 6 is really find out for themselves, is this thing working still or not? Because one of the most important things that was revealed during Sony's most recent financial earnings report is they straight up told their investors that we don't really know how to read the data right now. Like, we see how many units the PS5 is selling, and we're looking at the charts and we're looking at the graphs, but the pandemic screwed everything up. Like, COVID absolutely destroyed our ability to read and properly understand what's going on with this generation of console. And this is why I think Sony will have a very aggressive approach with the PlayStation 6, because I do think they're going to approach the PlayStation 6 as, all right, there's no pandemic. I don't want to say that there's minimal competition, but the market is there. Let's go for it, and let's go for it aggressively, and let's see what happens. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I think Sony's going to have a very similar, if not even more intense approach with the PlayStation 6 as they did with the PS5. Except this time, they're not going to have to worry about manufacturing being a problem. They're not going to have to worry about millions and millions of people who would love to buy a PS5, but literally can't because they just don't exist right now, right? I think Sony's going to take the approach of, let's basically let's redo, essentially, the PS5 gen. Not like literally, like obviously better technology, new games, but let's start over. Let's try it again. Or maybe that's what they'll do with the PS5 Pro. But either way, I do think that for now, the foreseeable future of the consoles, I don't think it's in question. I think that, yes, Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo, and I think all of them are having these conversations right now. But I think they're probably coming to similar conclusions that we're coming to here, where it's not that the console market is done or over, or that people aren't going to continue to buy consoles or support it. It's just that the whole industry is in turmoil right now. And of course, we as a company have to adapt. We can't fall behind. We can't just let our profit margins continue to shrink. We have to do something. But I'll tell you right now, if Microsoft, here's what I'll say. Here's my ending point here. If Microsoft, after announcing multiple games coming to PlayStation 5, is willing to come out, look into the camera and say, we will be doing another generation of Xbox console, and it's going to be the biggest technical leap we've ever done. If Microsoft is willing to do that when you look at their current console sales, then you better believe that Sony and Nintendo are just fine. So there you go. We have Alex Mercer, the prototype. Thank you for the $2 chat, buddy. You're saying they got to do something about those scalpers. Yeah. Well, I will say, again, let's say the PlayStation, I don't know if you're talking in reference to the PS5 Pro. I do wonder how many units of the PS5 Pro Sony's going to produce, because I don't want to have to deal with that. I would like the PS5 Pro to just be a available for anybody who wants one. With the PlayStation 6, we're not going to have to worry about that, right? Like, we're not going to, at least we shouldn't have to worry about there being like an availability problem with the PlayStation 6. So therefore, there shouldn't be that many scalpers at all. And we have Aries09 coming in, dropping a membership gift as well. Aries09.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you for keeping the membership train going today. You just brought us up to 7 members, which is awesome to see. Thank you guys for your continued support. Let's get some W's in the chat for Aries09. You think there will be at launch? Maybe at launch, but it won't. I don't think it'll last very long. I just don't think it's going to be a problem, dude. Maybe I'm being too optimistic about it, but you're saying scalpers are going to scalp though, no matter what. Yeah. I think you're right. Maybe at launch, but you know how like with the PlayStation 5, we were like 6, 7, 8 months into the PS5 generation, and it was still like, so where are these things? And you see people taking pictures of like, yo, check out my warehouse of PS5s I bought. It's not going to be like that, you know, because the reason why it was so intense this time around was because literally Sony could not make more. And the scalpers knew this. The scalpers knew, like, I'm going to buy all these PS5s and hold on to them because there's a good chance 2 months from now, like, Sony's still not going to be producing anywhere near enough. And I think with the PlayStation 6, again, assuming the manufacturing pipelines are totally intact and smoothed out, that shouldn't be an issue. All right. We have Chris Brown here with a $2 chat saying, still not over Sony ignoring PS3 era. It annoys me. To be honest, I don't know that that's really something. Well, that doesn't. I was going to say I don't know that that's something that they're choosing to do. Like, of course they're choosing to do that, but I think it's just Sony is like, you know what? This is like, we screwed ourselves here. It's interesting you mention this because I want to bring this up. I have this article here from PlayStation Lifestyle. It says more PS2 games expected in PlayStation Plus Premium as Sony partners with emulation company. Emulation company Implicit Conversations is apparently working with Sony to bring PS2 games to PS Plus Premium. Implicit Conversations, or sorry, not Conversations, Conversions. Yeah, why am I saying Conversations? That doesn't make any sense. Implicit Conversions was co-founded by former Ubisoft and Sony employees, the latter of whom also worked on PS2 emulator PSX2 or PCSX2 before joining the PlayStation maker. Implicit Conversion's case is a curious one. The studio's work on PS2 games was thrust into the limelight over the weekend following an interview with Time Extension. The website has since retracted the statement regarding Implicit bringing PS2 games to PS5, calling it a mistake and issuing an apology. However, Redditors have found Implicit's official LinkedIn page in which the company explicitly stated that it's working with Sony Interactive Entertainment to bring PS1, PS2, PSP, and PS4 and 5 games. It's unclear why Time Extension edited its feature. Interestingly, the aforementioned section has also been amended on Implicit's LinkedIn page, which now has a more generic statement claiming that it's working with clients to bring NES, PS1, PS2, and PS2 and let me try that again. NES, PS1, PSP, PS2, 4, and 5, Nintendo Switch, and Xbox games. So this is kind of weird. I mean, is this Sony? Did they kind of like reveal that Sony's going to ramp up bringing, PS2 games to PS Plus Premium? Maybe. It seems like they may have, or maybe they didn't. Maybe it really just was a mistake, but I don't know. I just had that up on my screen here, so I figured I would relay that to you guys. And Chris, when it comes to what you're saying about the PS3, I have to imagine Sony has thought about this for a while, and my guess here is that Sony could, they could do backwards compatibility for PS3. Like they could fully embrace the PS3 generation and, talk about it and support it and just go all in with it. But it would probably be very expensive because we know that the PlayStation 3 used the cell architecture or whatever. It was like some kind of development hellscape nightmare scenario. Like, and everybody hated it. And it was a big thorn in Sony's side. So it's like, it would probably be expensive for them. But you have to ask the question, like, how many people, and let's be honest here, like, let's just be really honest right now. How many people are really going to care that much, right? Sony's like, we have to invest all this money and all this time and all this manpower and all this resource into doing this big, heavy push for PS3. How many people currently playing on PS5 and PS4 are going to care? I think this is one of those situations, unfortunately, where it is, and I'm sorry to say it, but I do think it is a vocal minority, man, that frankly, from the business side of it, Sony looks at it and says, that's just going to be a waste of money and time. Like, it's just not, that's not going to help us at all. Like, that's, if anything, that could hurt us, right? And I feel bad saying that because I have memories with the PS3 as well. And it does suck, right? And to be fair, this is Sony's fault at the end of the day. They made a big mistake with the architecture of the PS3 and they're paying for it generations later, So it is their fault at the end of the day. And I can't fault any PlayStation fan for being, upset with Sony's lack of attention given to the PS3 generation. Titus Crow with a super chat here says, both accounts and PC tried. I legit cannot buy a membership. Hell, if it wasn't for the boys, I wouldn't have a membership. Must be a setting on my side. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. I would say maybe it's like your actual account or something. Yeah, I don't know. If you can gift memberships on other channels, maybe the next time somebody gives a membership on this channel, click the icon in the chat, the gift icon at the top, and make sure, I don't know, it's enabled. That's the only piece of advice I could give you at this point. This is not the first time I've seen people run into this problem, by the way. I've seen people run into this problem with not just memberships, but super chats as well. Perfect Image is saying it's in this. Are you saying it's my settings, Perfect Image? You're saying it's on my end? Or are you just saying in general, it's just the settings? You're saying, or Space Gambler Jr., you're saying the PS3 server blades are failing, so Sony has to do something about it. Yeah, I think so. They can't keep them running forever. Chris Brown, you're saying, yes, MBG, I meant to bring that up. I was on a live stream this morning, and I'm on iOS, and I was able to gift members. We have Aries09 feeling very generous today, dropping a second membership for you guys. I guess I'll just talk about membership gifting. So, Titus, yeah, I don't know, man. You could click Aries09, the gift at the top, and just, I guess, make sure you're opted. I mean, you must be opted in if you do have a membership that's been gifted to you. But yeah, Aries09, thank you so much for, again, keeping the membership train going today. That brings us up to 8 members gifted. Thank you so much for all the support, guys. Is it a branded account? I don't think it's a branded account because he said he was able to gift on other channels. Irfan saying some can't. It's region related. It could be that. Yeah. So check this out. I do have a bit of a bonus topic for you guys. I think it's pretty relevant to what we've been talking about, but I came across this write-up. You guys might be interested in it. from Ars Technica what a potential post-Xbox future could mean for Sony and Nintendo. Microsoft's decision to ease off its 23-year competition with Sony and Nintendo over supremacy in games hardware has opened a path for Japan's return as the world's undisputed home of the console. The prospect of a new, less internationalized era of console wars may have raised hopes of happier times for the Japanese survivors, but has also caused analysts and investors to revisit and question the question of how much longer the whole genre of dedicated game machines will continue to exist. Well, I guess this is actually more in line with what we've been talking about. Microsoft head of gaming Phil Spencer last month revealed plans to release what would previously have been exclusively Xbox games for use on rival platforms as part of a new focus on cloud-based gaming. While the US technology giant has said it's still working on a new generation of more powerful consoles, analysts think its long-term direction is clear. All signs point to the hardware becoming less and less important to Microsoft, so there is that possibility that we could go back to a point like we were in the 1990s, where the viable choices of console were all Japanese. This is what Serkan Toto, head of the games consultancy, Canton Games, giving up the console fight to concentrate on software could be taken as a huge victory for Japan. Too many, the birthplace of Super Mario, Sonic the Hedgehog, Final Fantasy, and Pokemon, is the spiritual home of the console and has featured the industry's fiercest golden age, 1980s and 1990s clashes of Nintendo versus Sega and later Nintendo versus Sony. It may not happen immediately because the technology of cloud gaming is clearly not ready yet, but from what Microsoft is indicating, there is a possibility that we go back to an all-Japan console industry with Sony and Nintendo each dominating their part of that market in their different, unique ways. This is what David Gibson said, an analyst at MST Financial. But the return to a Japan-only industry for dedicated games hardware could more clearly define the console as a commercial cul-de-sac. That issue said independent games analyst Pelham Smithers, could be particularly acute for Sony, which last week announced plans to cut 900 staff from its games unit. It was tough enough for Sony arguing the need to investors for a PS5, and a lot of people at the time were saying that the PS5 could be the end of the line, but Microsoft's commitment to console gaming helped, said Smithers. Nintendo, meanwhile, faces an issue of timing. Its Switch machine, released in 2017 and now significantly underpowered, even when compared with some of the mobile phones, is set to be replaced with a next-generation successor. But the Kyoto-based company has yet to say precisely when and what it will look like. Analysts said Nintendo is still traumatized, oh man, what a word to use, by the experience of 2012 when it launched a poorly conceived successor to the global blockbuster, the Wii console. Sales of the existing Switch are respectable, said Toto, but more or less everyone who wanted the console has bought one by now. The market, he said, will be waiting for Nintendo's successor and may hold back on buying games for the Switch ahead of the new machine being released. Gibson said Sony's problems are very different. Its PS5 machine, now 4 years old, is popular, but its games business is now guided by accountants rather than people primed to manage a creative business. Previous generations of the PlayStation had been launched with an expectation that the machine would initially be sold at a loss before the price of components quickly fell, allowing the company to break even and, in time, allow price cuts for customers. By its fifth year of release, the PS4 had two price cuts totaling $100. The PS5 has had none. With the accountants in charge, Sony is not prepared to cut prices by $100 to stimulate demand because that would cost $2 billion in profits, Gibson said. Microsoft, which has spent huge sums of acquisitions of games studios. Microsoft, which has spent huge sums on acquisitions of game studios, such as the $75 billion purchase of Activision, is facing similar issues with its hardware economics. Analysts said the U.S. company may have greater motivation than Sony to become an all-platform king. The state of the console market right now may not be an advertisement per se for Japan getting its mojo back. It feels like these three very idiosyncratic businesses are doing well or not for idiosyncratic reasons, said Robin Zhu, games analyst at Bernstein. There is a chance that Microsoft's new direction is a win-win-win situation, according to Atul Goyal at Jefferies, because of the different situation each company finds itself in. Microsoft, he said, could pump up returns by offering its games across different platforms, while Nintendo and Sony would face less intense competition and benefit from having a wider choice of titles for customers. But as Zhu said, one factor that might keep Microsoft from killing off the Xbox entirely is at the same thing that will keep Sony and Nintendo in the market: the fierce loyalty of gamers. The concern Microsoft will have is that you've already convinced your customers to buy the hardware. By telling them that Xbox games will be on every other platform, you risk upsetting your highest engagement and most dogmatic customers, he said. So, you read stuff like this. I got to tell you, sorry. You read stuff like this. At least I click on articles like this. I'm like, oh, a bunch of video game analysts saying stuff, giving us insight, and they're just saying the literal most obvious shit that anybody could point out. Like, there was no actual insight there, bro. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude towards these analysts, but geez, man. Like, I read that whole thing expecting by the end, like, one of them was literally like, if Microsoft tries to move away from the console, they could lose their most loyal customers. It's like what? Dude, you get paid to say that? I mean, it's fine. I'm sure they're, they have a different understanding maybe. But I will say the only interesting thing here, there was one interesting note. And that was whoever mentioned the fact that PlayStation is now being run by accountants. Like that is fascinating to me, man, because we've known that, but to hear it worded that way, it definitely, I don't know, it just hits different, it makes me just kind of feel differently about it. PlayStation is being run by accountants right now. Man, I don't know what's going on. This wind has been crazy past 24 hours or so. It's actually very annoying. Is that a bad thing though? As of right now, I would say no. At this moment in time, I don't think that's a bad thing. Considering the gaming budgets are getting out of control, no, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's actually maybe for now, temporarily, a necessary thing. Oh no, I'm so thirsty today. But wasn't Jim Ryan still somewhat of a gamer though? I don't think so. I think he had a very well-rounded understanding of the PlayStation business in terms of all the different components, what makes PlayStation. But I don't think he was necessarily a gamer. To whereas I look at somebody like Hiroki Totoki, the CFO and the president of Sony. He's currently in charge of PlayStation until they find their new CEO. I don't think he knows anything about PlayStation. I think he made it pretty clear that he was visiting the PlayStation teams, the different studios, and talking with them, and it's his way of, I guess, trying to get a better understanding of exactly how the PlayStation business side of things, how they work, what's going on. And he was very upset with Bungie. Corey, you're saying, so let me get this straight, bro. Sony is one of those things called a business? Shocking intel. Yeah, I know. I would have never thought that PlayStation is a business. Let me see here. Hold on, guys. I'm just checking to see if. So this is a little bit off topic, but it says Battlefield franchise has lost yet another creative director. Dude, is it just me or does it seem like Battlefield is completely finished at this point? They lost another director. Not good, man. That's not good. Sorry. I was just checking the PS5 Reddit. The real question, will Sony ever make a comeback with must-have first-party games? And a lot of them, yes. Yeah, I think the answer to that is an obvious yes, truthfully. I do. And I'm not just saying that. I think that there's actual evidence, like compelling evidence that will happen. Let's think about it. Ghost of Tsushima 2. Is that going to be a winner? Is that going to be what we would consider like a must-have first-party game? I would say, yeah. Is that coming out this generation with the PlayStation 5? Yes. Gaming is dead, MBG. Time to change this channel to a book reading club. Not the worst idea. Not the worst idea. Don't ask me to think about it. I'm a Nintendo fan. So, well, all right. So we'll start with Ghost of Tsushima 2. Ghost of Tsushima 2, I would consider a must-have game. That's going to, it's going to come out this generation, and it's going to be huge, I think, for PlayStation and the PS5. Wolverine. Putting the leaks aside, putting the, I'm not going down that road again. I ranted about that enough yesterday. Is Wolverine going to be a big game? It is. Yeah. Is it going to be considered a must-have? If they do it right, yeah, I think it will. If they handle Wolverine correctly, yes, I think Wolverine could easily be a must-have game, certainly. So there's potentially two right there, just off the top of my head. But let's think about Naughty Dog. Is Naughty Dog going to release a new game before the end of this generation? It's not a guarantee, but I want to say it's likely, yeah. It'd be kind of crazy if they didn't. So, would that be considered a big first-party must-have? I would say so, yeah. Even though I think people will be a little bit divisive because it's Naughty Dog, I think ultimately they'll probably deliver something that will be objectively impressive. Sony Bend. Is Sony Bend going to launch a new AAA game before the end of this generation? Yes. You would hope so. So there's another one. Sony Santa Monica's new IP. Do we think that's going to come before next gen? Maybe. I don't want to say for sure, but maybe. Is there going to be another Astro game? Yes. So I think that there's quite a bit. And some of these games might not make it this gen, but I do think that, to end, because I think that's a good question. I think that's a question that's on everybody's minds is like, is Sony going to deliver the big games that we hope to see from them for the, to make that kind of comeback, so to speak, that you're referencing? Yeah, I think so. I definitely think so. Irfan, you're saying we need to showcase badly. I think so. Yeah. I think that right now, I don't want to say it's like the calm before the storm. Maybe that's a bit dramatic, but I guess for lack of a better term, that's kind of what it is. And when I say right now, I don't mean like this week. I mean like this month and maybe April and maybe May. But, for now, it just feels like kind of the calm where things are getting awfully quiet. We're coming off of some bad news with the layoffs and whatnot and the studio closure. And so I think getting something together is going to be imperative. I think Sony coming out and, whether it be again in May or June or July or, sometime over the summer, coming out and being like, here you go. Like, this is our show, and we know you've been waiting to see a lot of this stuff, so enjoy. I think that's imperative. Yeah. The internet says we are not going to get any more AAA exclusives for PS5. Come on, people. The internet is always right. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why people... I can only assume the reason why people say that is because they don't understand PlayStation Studios. And when I say understand, I mean they literally are not aware of how many studios Sony owns and what each studio is kind of working on. I'm not trying to bank on everything here. Could Sony Ben's game get canceled? Yeah, it could. Could Sony Santa Monica's new IP be a disaster? Yeah, of course. We know that these processes are complicated and they're not perfect, but it's I think people who say this, they read the headlines of Sony telling their shareholders that we're not going to have any big sequels and franchise games coming this year. We're not going to have the Horizon or the Last of Us or the God of War or whatever, And I think people read that and they're like, well, damn, Sony doesn't have any games, bro. It's well, no, I mean, they do. It's just they're basically trying to prepare their shareholders that we're probably not going to have a game that sells 10 million this year. We might not have a game that gets even close to selling 10 million. So just be prepared for that. So I don't think Sony's going to try to oversell Astro or Concord or something like that. But yeah, there are people who kind of speak as if the PS5 gen is done, and that's a narrative that I will say has truly frustrated me. And I know that there's nothing I can do about it because I'm not Sony PlayStation. I'm not the one that can come out and say, guys, this whole narrative of the PS5 being done and over already is wrong. And let me show you why. That's Sony's job. And they will do that. It's just, they're a multi-billion-dollar corporation. They're not worried about the narrative online. They're going to do what they have to do, and they know how this shit works. They know, and I think most of us know how this works as well. I'll tell you right now, Sony will have another killer showcase. I don't know when it's going to be. It might not even be this year. I'm just saying, at some point in time, Sony's going to show the goods. And when they do, the conversation and the narrative will flip completely. It'll be just a complete 180. And it'll happen overnight. That's how these things work. Right now, there's nothing. That's just the reality. There's not literally nothing. I mean, there's Rise of the Ronin, there's Stellar Blade, there's Wolverine, but you get what I'm saying. There's just nothing that has really occurred. And we could say Fizzant, Kojima's new game. It's yes, but again, that's another one of those things that falls in that category of all right, well, maybe in 2030, So I don't feel comfortable kind of pointing to a game that's hey guys, get hyped because this game might not even come out on PS5. Saying Herman Hulst went full dark mode after last year's showcase. Yeah, he did. He did. I'll be very curious to see what Herman plans to show us, hopefully sometime this year. I mean, I think he got off to a good start. Herman Hulst was clearly very excited for that Kojima reveal. He knew. Herman knew. He knew people are going to be hyped for this. He was right. Maybe they're waiting for GTA 6. Yeah, that's another thing I've talked about a little bit as well, where, I mean, again, I don't think Sony wants to use a game that's not theirs. when speaking to shareholders. Also because Sony doesn't know when GTA 6 is launching. So here's the thing. If there was ever, let's think of a release date for GTA 6. When is GTA 6 going to launch? Well, let me ask you, do you think February or March of 2025 sounds realistic? I mean, I think it's possible. March 2025, I think that's possible. So let me ask you this. If GTA 6 does launch in early 2025, it's a big if, but if it does, there have been rumors that claim that that is what they're targeting right now, that they're in the final polishing stage. If there was ever going to be a time for Sony to not have any games to release, that would be the time. That would 100% be the time where it's like, we don't need anything right now. If anything, we need to get out of this game's way. That would be the time. So I guess what I'm trying to say is if the stars align, we could see a scenario where Sony has an okay 2024, no major juggernaut, big hitter exclusive, but, bunch of different types. I mean, maybe Final Fantasy Rebirth could be the biggest exclusive, but we get games like Concord, Until Dawn Remastered, a new Astrobot game, maybe, Rise of the Ronin, stuff like that. And then we go into January, February, March of 2025, and GTA 6 comes out, and there's a PS5 Pro. Dude, that could change everything for PlayStation. It could. I think everybody knows that. Like, that could change everything. Especially if there's like a bundle or something like that. But Sony can't really say that because they don't know. They don't know when GTA 6 is launching. Tower Dragon. Looks like you used your milestone chat here, but there's no words. I don't know if you typed anything or not, but nothing is showing up. So I'll just give you a shout out, Tower Dragon. Thank you for being a member for 5 months, man. Appreciate it. You're saying Sony has to know the time frame? No way they don't. I mean, they probably do, but I don't think they're allowed to say anything. Like, Sony probably knows that it's going to be like if they're targeting an early 2025, Sony probably is aware of that. So they, maybe not though. I don't know. You're saying that was intended? Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. I always sometimes worry that somebody tried to type something in and with their milestone chat and it just didn't come through. But yeah, something I hope doesn't happen is well, I don't know, actually maybe that would be pretty cool. Maybe this year won't be the strongest year for PlayStation ever, but you do have to wonder what 2025 would be like, right? 2025, PS5 Pro will be out in the market, GTA 6, Death Stranding 2. By that point in time, Sony would have probably revealed games like Ghost of Tsushima 2, maybe Naughty Dog's new game. I mean, they probably have other, not massive AAA games. It's hard to say, but they probably have other titles that are going to be ready to go in 2025 that we don't know about yet. So it could be huge, man. What about VR? I'm not feeling too confident in VR, to be completely honest. I'm not. I'm feeling kind of concerned that VR is going to struggle. I think that maybe we should pay attention when it comes to VR to Sony bringing it to PC or allowing PSVR 2 users to use it on PC and play PC games. That could be something that breathes new life into PSVR 2. Oh yeah, Venom. Forgot to mention that as well. Venom is apparently coming out in 2025. So that'll be... I'll actually be pretty excited for that. That was my favorite part of Spider-Man 2. So Zombie Fanatic, you're saying MBG, changing topics. I heard a YouTuber say that the Nintendo Switch could be delayed until 2026 at the latest. He said Nintendo could squeeze out the Switch by releasing another model of it. That would be crazy. I mean, I think people were already a little bit surprised to hear that the Nintendo Switch 2 is apparently getting pushed to 2025, but to 2026, I don't think so, dude. That would be, I think, too risky. I think that would be too risky for Nintendo. Magnum Gaming, I see you, man. I see you. Yeah, I'll be interested to see how Venom turns out. But I don't know. I played the Spider-Man 2 section with Venom, and I was like, this is awesome. That was the highlight of the game for me. So I do have high hopes for it. They patented a small version of the Switch. Well, if Nintendo were to wait that long for the Switch 2, then the expectation would be it's got to be more powerful, right? Right? Jay Shako, you're saying VR is dead? I don't think it's dead yet, but it's looking a little bit murky out there, I would say, for VR. Pragmatic Cat, longtime member for 25 months, says, MBG, maybe you don't remember, but the Battlefield E3 tech demos of the past have been epic. 100 players on screen, destructible environments, etc. Battlefield 2042 is epic on PC, and there's a Battlefield 6 prototype on YouTube. I never heard about that, a Battlefield 6 prototype. Yeah, people have told me that Battlefield 2042 has made a pretty good comeback. I'm not going to play it, but I've heard good things. And you're right, dude. I do remember some of the tech demos from previous Battlefield games. They were always kind of like a big highlight at E3. The one I remember in particular, I think it was Battlefield 4 with the skyscraper like collapsing or whatever. I do remember Bad Company 2 had amazing destructibility as well. We'll see. We'll see what ends up happening to Battlefield. I would love to see Battlefield make a good comeback, but yeah, Corey knows. Corey played Bad Company 2. Shems knows as well. Yeah, Bad Company 2 was a fantastic game, man. I would love to see them go make a Bad Company 3. I think I think they run a risk of like letting people down because Bad Company 3 would be made by an entirely different team of people now. I'm assuming nobody who made Bad Company 2 is still working at EA. So it would be a very different Bad Company, but I would still like to see them take a shot, you know? Yeah, I think that was confirmed. The next Battlefield's going to be kind of like near future. You're saying 2028. Yeah, I mean, with Bad Company 2, man, I remember the class system was on point. Like, it felt perfectly balanced. And I think that was really what made that game so fun. Alongside the destructibility, is everything felt balanced. We got Corey the Legend Landiga coming in. He's dropping a membership gift for you guys. Corey's dropping a gift.
Thank you.
Corey, thank you so much, man. You just brought us up to 9 members on the day. Let's get some W's flowing in the chat for our good friend Corey here. Always showing the community some love. And Jake Skew28 comes in and drops another membership gift. Jake, shout out to you, man.
Thank you.
I think that's your second gift you're dropping today. You just got us up to 10 members. So membership train's still rolling, guys. Thank you. Thank you for all the support that you guys show. Because boss said so. Yeah. As I said earlier, if we hit our goal today of 25, I'll bring boss in, or I'll try to bring him in and give him some gifts. I mean, to him, it is a gift. Give him some snacks. But I have to try to mitigate when Boss is in the room with me, because he is, I'm not going to lie to you, I almost kind of regret ever giving him snacks while streaming, because he just behaves differently now, man. And I don't know how to get him to chill out. I don't know why he does it, you know? I'm assuming it's because of the snacks, but he starts getting not aggressive. He just starts chewing shit he shouldn't. And I'm like, bro, you can't do that. But he only does it when he's in here. And we have Hellbound 1981 coming in, dropping a 5-bomb for you guys. Hellbound's dropping 5 more gifts. Definitely giving us a boost today. Hellbound, the legend. Hellbound kept us waiting. Thank you, man.
Appreciate it.
Really appreciate it. You just brought us to 15 members. Let me add that to the counter. Boss is beefing up. I don't know how many of you guys were here yesterday, but something Boss did that I didn't ever see him do before is, you know, he likes to chill on the desk here with me a little bit, and I placed him on the floor, and I was just chatting with you guys, and I hear him doing something behind me, and I look behind me, and he's chewing the USB dongle connected to my PS5 for my Pulse Elite headset. Like, aggressively chewing it. I'm like, dude, I can't keep you in here. You're going to break my shit. I just bought that thing, man. He legit scared me. I'm like, I'm getting nervous about keeping him in here. We call upon thee, boss. And Tower Dragon is keeping this membership train going today. Tower Dragon drops a membership gift. Let's get some W's flowing in the chat.
Thank you.
For Tower Dragon. Thank you for that, man. You just brought us up to 16 members on the day. I really appreciate the support, guys. Your cat will scratch the snack bags. That's pretty smart, though. Truthfully. Because they could, I mean, their claws, assuming that they still have their claws, they could definitely get through those plastic snack bags. It would probably take some effort. I guess I'm just saying, like, they could effectively get to the snacks that way. He gets a bit snarky like a boss. Gaming Survivor, you're saying this is on you. No, I bear the responsibility, man. I hold myself accountable. I can't be mad at boss because you're right. Like, he is the monster I created. But I now have to tame the beast, so to speak. When you move boss out of the way, he feels ignored and bites your stuff. That's what cats do. You know what's funny about that, Chris, is I think you're completely right. Like, that makes total sense. But he does not behave like that ever. I know you guys think I'm probably exaggerating, but I'm not when I tell you that the way boss behaves when you see him when I'm streaming, he does not act like that at all. Ever. Throughout the day. No matter what I'm doing. He does not act like that. And I don't know why that is. I don't know. He genuinely has a different attitude when we're live. And I find it very fascinating. It really makes me wonder, like, does he actually know what's going on right now? Or does he have some kind of understanding? I feel like he shouldn't, but the way he's behaving, it seems like he might. Do I let my cats go outside? No. Leia is a very scared cat. She's literally a scaredy cat. And I mean, the closest I've tried to, like, you know, hold her with the door open, let her get some fresh air, and she just freaks out. She's like, nope, I'm good. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. You don't have to go outside if you don't. I'm not trying to make you go outside. I don't want to, you know. But I don't have like a cat leash or anything. I've never taken them out. Oh, and I also just want it to be known, for those wondering, I do give boss snacks outside of the streams as well. Because I thought some people are probably thinking, well, he only acts like that when you're streaming because that's the only time he gets snacks. No, he gets snacks at other times, and he does not act like that. A cat has an IQ of about 48. Leia is traumatized by boss on snacks. I will tell you, Leia is a traumatized cat. I don't know why. I don't know. Leia acts like a very traumatized cat where she's always so scared of everything and very on edge. I think she just has good survival instincts. That's what I think. She seems like she would do well. Like, mentally, I don't think she would do well in the wild. She'd be scared shitless all the time. But I think she would survive. She's very, like, she just doesn't trust. Like, she's always suspicious of everything. And I think, when you're out in the wild, that's probably how you have to be. Boss, though, I don't know. I don't think Boss would make it in the wild, man. You're asking if I don't like dogs. I do like dogs. I've had pet dogs in the past. I like dogs. I think at this point in my life I am more of a cat person, but I could see myself maybe having a dog again one day. I'm not sure. Chris, you're saying you and your wife have 3 cats and 1 dog. They basically bully the dog. You gotta love those dynamics. You gotta love how those dynamics work. What I have to do, you know what I'm gonna do? The next time I have a decently sized cardboard box, I have to try to remember. I'm just gonna bring it in the bedroom here with me. Boss will probably enjoy that. Put the snacks in the box. He loves boxes. All cats do. Jake Skew, you're heading out, saying you're going to go play some Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Making a video on it. Well, good. Yeah, have fun, man. And again, thank you for stopping by, and thank you for dropping some membership gifts. I've still been playing some Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I'm finding that I'm playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth very differently than I was Remake. Jay Shako, you're asking if Leia is better. Yeah. No news is good news. I probably should have updated you guys, but yeah, Leia's fine now. She's doing just fine. It was definitely a type of allergic reaction she had to a different type of food we gave her. She's made a full recovery though, and she's back to her normal scared self, I guess. Bro, he's paying closer attention to you than you think. He might have been able to rationalize that your attention is being held by that camera thingy. Oh, yeah. So you're saying like it, but that would be so funny, man. If that's how he viewed it in his small cat brain, where he's like, I'm trapped. Like he has to get me. His goal is to just get my attention away from the camera. And if that happens, he gets snacks. That's so funny. I guess that actually would make the most sense. That would explain him doing the strangest shit that he just never does. Oh my God. Chris, you're saying you kill me, bro. I've been telling you that for months. I guess it's just the way I probably read you saying that at one point, but it just, I think, registered in my brain now. Like, yeah, that does explain it. I don't know why it didn't click earlier. What's wrong with my camera? The focus goes in and out. Yeah, that I don't know if it's doing that a lot. I have my camera set to autofocus, so I don't know. You guys will have to tell me. Is it getting annoying? Does it autofocus too frequently? It just has to basically readjust the focus to give you the reason it does that is to give you the clearest, crispest. God, man, I can't say that word. Crispest image that the camera can possibly give you. I don't think it does it that often. Space Gambler, you think I should turn autofocus off? Maybe. I mean, I don't really... No, I don't think I can do that because sometimes I do move around the room. Sometimes I do move around the room. Judging by the emojis, I'm assuming that when the camera focuses in and out, Aries 09 seems like they're doing like a 720 spin falling flat on the ground, and it just ruins their day. But talking about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I wanted to say this to you guys because I actually wanted to ask you guys this question for anybody who is playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I notice I am playing it differently. I am playing it differently than I played Remake because Remake is a linear game, and I'm running into that problem that I always run into with open world games where, man, there's so much side stuff to do that the story is basically taking a back seat for now. And I don't mind it. I just noticed that I feel like, here's what I'm trying to say. When I am playing a linear game with a story, it's easier for me to just keep moving forward and like play longer sessions and less bite-sized sessions because it always feels like I'm making story progress. It feels, I guess, more rewarding in a sense, or not. If not rewarding, it just feels like there's more of a drive, like just knowing that. And the next thing I do, it's gonna maybe reveal another story beat. To whereas when I'm playing open world games and I start to do all the side stuff, I find that I tend to play in more bite-sized chunks. And it's a good thing too. I just enjoy playing open world games like that, I guess. And I am still on just chapter 2, man, where I'm just checking off like all the different points. Is it overwhelming? It's only overwhelming if I go into the game feeling like I have to make a certain amount of progress, or I need to, like, I have to quickly get through this game. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you guys ever feel that way. And I'm trying to remove that feeling from gaming entirely, where I sometimes I approach games with this sense of like, I have to complete it in like a timely manner. But in reality, it's like, just relax and enjoy the game as you want. There's like, it's not going anywhere, like there is no rush. And that happens to me sometimes. I think what it is it's Rise of the Ronin approaching rapidly. Like I start to feel like, oh man, I got to make sure I do everything in this game before Rise of the Ronin drops. Because the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm realizing there's no chance I'm playing Dragon's Dogma 2 and Rise of the Ronin at the same time. That's not happening. I'm going to go with Rise of the Ronin first, and maybe I could play Rise of the Ronin and Rebirth at the same time, but it sounds a little bit stressful. Like I want my focus to just be on one or the other. B Flesh, you're saying MBG, highly recommend you get used to skipping stuff and not going for the plat. There's 5 more open world zones. It gets tedious. Oh shit. I didn't realize there was that many. Yeah, I guess this is just still the first open world zone. There's a lot, man. There's a lot. It is tedious. And I don't mind the tedium too much, It can get a bit repetitive. I still feel like I'm trying to find my footing with the combat again. Like I don't remember struggling this much with the combat in Remake, but maybe I did. It just doesn't feel like I did. I feel like I got pretty good at it pretty quick, and I feel like in this game, it does feel a bit more challenging, or I feel weaker, or I don't know. I'm finding them still getting adjusted to it. The game is huge. The first zone isn't even the biggest one. Damn, bro. Yeah, I don't know. I might have to just forego. I might have to just let it go, the platinum that is. Because I know, like, you have to beat the game on hard. You have to do a whole other playthrough. But I feel weird. Like, I always feel weird. This is what I don't like about open world games at times. Open world games make me feel kind of pressured. Like, well, I should do all the content or like 95% of it, right? Right? Like, isn't that why it's there? And I think sometimes this is why I do tend to prefer not single player, linear games, because it just kind of alleviates that stress. But it's not always bad. It depends on how I approach it. Like, for example, this morning I played for like an hour and a half and I was just doing side stuff. And I walked away feeling like I didn't really make any meaningful progress in the story, but I know I still progressed the game and unlocked new stuff and got XP. You know what I mean? So it was slightly less rewarding, but still rewarding. Josh, thank you for the $10 super chat, man. You're saying, I imagine the shift in the game structure from remake to rebirth is quite jarring for you as a new Final Fantasy fan. It's quite a lot, but the quality of the content is some of the best ever in an RPG. It is a bit jarring, but maybe it's beneficial that there was like a pretty significant gap for me. Now, I mean, I guess the gap in time between remake and rebirth is longer for other people since remake did come out in 2019. I played remake in the summer of 2022. So, I had between then and now to just kind of not forget the game, but not have it be at the forefront of my mind. And so it was easier to kind of like go into rebirth. To me, what would be extremely jarring is playing remake and then immediately going into rebirth. And when I say jarring, I don't mean in like a bad way, but just like, whoa, this is a totally different approach. I will say, I think playing Final Fantasy 16 kind of actually helped be the like in between spot where remake was linear, 16 was not full open world, but had open zones. And now rebirth feels full blown open world. I mean, basically, it pretty much is. And so I guess in a way I did kind of have that natural progression to get to this point. But yeah, it's just the thing that has changed, like I said, is the way in which I'm approaching the game, where when I was playing remake, I felt there was more of a drive to like, I just want to play a little bit more, because there was always a story beat happening, like a main story beat. And, there were some side quests as well, and maybe that's where things slowed down at times. But there's so much side content here, so many different things to do that it is, like, for example, I said I played for an hour and a half earlier. Literally 30 minutes of that hour and a half was me playing the Queen's Blood card game. I think it was for a side mission, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Which Final Fantasy game do I like the most? I think right now remake is my favorite. I'm not further enough yet in rebirth to, say that it is better than remake. And 16, but I don't know, 16 is like very, very, very close. 16 was awesome. The boss battles in 16 and the fast-paced combat I really enjoyed. But yeah, Josh, you're saying that the quality of the content is some of the best ever in an RPG. Yeah, I'm feeling more eager to get into the main story stuff, because I notice with a lot of the side content, that's where like some of the more cringy stuff goes on, and it's fine. Like, I know what to expect. Like, do you know what's the name of that stupid gang? It's like those gang members. They were in remake, and they're like idiots. And I'm just like this is ridiculous. I forget the name of the gang, but I just basically finished up. I'm assuming they come back in like another open world zone sector or chapter, but there's like more cringe in the side stuff than the main stuff. And that's why I'm like more eager. Like I want to get into the meat and potatoes here, like Team Rocket, basically. But you know, it is part of the charm. It is part of the charm, and it was there in the first game. Josh with another super chat here. Thank you for that, man. You're saying you will get to a point where you can't wait to continue the story. It's a slow build, but totally worth it. I'm glad you said that, Josh, because like that is pretty much what happened in Remake. Like there was a little bit of a slow build in Remake, but it's like one of those things where once it got to the top of the hill and it just made its way over, it just, you know, it just, you can't stop it at that point. That is what happened with me in Remake, and I do feel like truly I've made like zero progress basically with the main story. This isn't, I don't think this should not be spoilers because it's literally like in chapter 2, but the furthest I got in the story so far is when you fight the like Cobra boss or the snake boss, and you know, Sephiroth just like randomly appears and you know, then he's just gone. That's as far as I've gotten in the story. So I'm still just working my way through the open world stuff in chapter 2. But I believe it. I believe that, Josh, because I'm like, it's funny because you're right. Like the gameplay is so different, the structure is so different that it almost at one point, I won't lie to you, like at one point I was like, I enjoyed Remake a lot. Why am I not feeling the same way? And then I was like thinking like, dude, well, because you're not playing the story. You're literally like climbing towers and you know, digging shit up with your chocobo and like fighting random enemies and stuff. That's why you don't feel the same way. And it's funny that you say that, Josh, because it's like, yeah, I'm it's too easy for me to forget like the kind of like snowball effect, I guess you could say, that that occurred with Remake. And I imagine since Rebirth is even bigger, and you know, I haven't been exposed to any spoilers, but people are telling me that the story is incredible. So I do just wonder if I'm going to break at some point and just say, screw it, I'm just mainlining the game. You know, like I'm just going to go straight through. I'm not even going to bother doing any of the side stuff. You're saying open world games forget that they have to be interesting, LOL. I mean, yeah, I still think that, again, open world games I have like a love-hate relationship with them, truly, where they're all done in such different ways, and they're all, you know, every development team has their own way of handling the open worlds and the side content. And if there's one thing that I always am prepared for when going into an open world game, is that there's going to be downtime when playing it. And I always realize that, where I know that no matter, like, one of the things I can't stand in open world games, and I've learned this about myself over years of playing open world games, and to be truthful, Rebirth is a reminder of this. And I get from a development standpoint, it's like you have to do this. Like it's an unwritten rule, or maybe even a written rule. Like, you have to do this. I can't stand that they're like, and we're just going to put random enemies everywhere. We're just going to put random encounters everywhere. And it's like, somebody needs to tell these developers that that's not fun. I don't know why this is like a requirement. I guess it's because they're like afraid that, I guess it's for like, maybe there are certain players out there that are like, I need to have action going on every 3 minutes. And I guess the developers are like, well, if we don't put that there, we might lose that player. But to me, it's just annoying, dude. Like, you know, I think like when you are traveling from point A to point B, to me, this is where, if you're going to make an open world game, one of the best ways, in my opinion, to make that world interesting, to the player as you're going from point A to point B is to create a beautiful world, one that's worth paying attention to, just visually speaking. That's how it was with Ghost of Tsushima. When I think of like Red Dead Redemption, it was like that as well, where it's just when the game, I think it opens up the window of opportunity for the art direction to really shine. And maybe not every player would feel that way, but I just think that this notion of like we have to have just random enemies everywhere, it's like it just feels like a fucking roadblock. You know what I mean? Not only am I'm not even taking in the visual scenery now. Now I just feel like I'm distracted by something that's annoying me. That's just my personal nitpick with a lot of open world game design that I find is just, it's very prevalent, and I just don't think it's needed. Like I'm not saying there shouldn't be any encounters. I'm just saying like they should be way more spread out than what I see in most of these games, where it's like literally every, not even 3 minutes is an exaggeration. It's literally every 30 to 45 seconds, there's another group of enemies that I'm like, okay, now I got to avoid these guys. Yeah, 3 hours of me staring at trees. Yeah, I'm interested in the Elden Ring DLC, I think. I don't know. I was thinking about if I'm going to play the Elden Ring DLC. I want to. I haven't played Elden Ring in a long time. And I told you guys, like, I struggled towards the end of Elden Ring. Like, I basically needed to be carried through the ending of that game, bro. Like, I'm not even going to front. I made my character really high leveled, strength build, and I still like, I was like, dude, some of these bosses, I can't do this. I need help. And I got that help. The player base was awesome, always there to summon, but man, I did play the game. Yeah, I did beat it. Didn't platinum it though. You've got 10 characters. Do I think the Horizon games are good at open worlds? I do think they're pretty, like, so when I'm talking about the Horizon games, my biggest gripe with the Horizon games, it's not the open. I think the open world is awesome. I do. Like, I think Horizon is one of those games where it's like, what a visual spectacle. Like, I really am totally okay just kind of wandering through this world and, making my way through it and just enjoying. Of course, there's machines everywhere and stuff, and that can get a bit annoying at times, but it makes more sense in the world of Horizon because it's like, machines populate the world now, and it's like, okay, they're like animals, so they're everywhere. I get that, but the thing that I think bothers me about Horizon, and I don't know if I'm being like overly pessimistic towards it, and I'm not trying to be. I'm just being honest in my thoughts right now, is that I think some of the writing and just like the characters, where it's like, I don't know if it's Aloy or the way she interacts with people, but everything just feels like a bit bland, if that makes, not all of it, but like a lot of it just kind of feels like, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, not even in a rude way. It's just like, I don't really care what you're saying. I don't, what's the problem right now? Silence was, yeah, he was my favorite character. He is my favorite character. I mean, rest in peace to Lance Reddick, and that's a shame that he's apparently not going to be in the third one. But it's just, at some point there's just some stuff where it's like, and I guess maybe, see, this is what makes me question open worlds as well, because it is tough, I think, to make all the different characters interesting and all of the different interactions actually genuinely interesting. I get that. That's a real challenge when you have big games, a lot of content, a lot of side stuff. But the main quests in Horizon, I think, are really good. And I know not everybody really enjoyed the story of Horizon Forbidden West as much. I can understand that. Like, I do think that the story of Horizon Forbidden West, it definitely it was one of those things where it's like, all right, we're going to take a twist and a turn, and we're not really sure if it's going to be as good or surprising as the first game, but we're going for it. And I didn't have a problem with it. I wasn't like grossly offended. I'm like, this is stupid. I thought it was actually, like, to be honest, I'm hoping the ending of Horizon Forbidden West, I won't lie to you, got kind of silly. It did. Like, it like is okay. Like, this is a little bit nuts now, but what it's building towards, to me, is what really fascinated me. So, spoilers for Horizon Forbidden West. Just putting it out there. You're saying Aloy is mean and boring to everyone around her? Listen, I will admit, Aloy's not a super interesting character. Here's the thing. When Guerrilla Games wrote Horizon 1, I think what made Aloy such an interesting character was the fact that we didn't know her origin. Like, who are you? Where did you come from? Like, what makes you different? And I think, unfortunately, once we learned that about her, where it's like, now we have the answers to those questions, I think you kind of realize, or at least I realized, that, well, you just became a lot less, I'll be honest, like, you became a lot less interesting. Yeah, like, the backstory is really interesting, but in terms of her personality, and you know what, though? Here's the thing. I will say this, too. Everybody talks about protagonist writing, and in a way, I'll be honest, in a way, Aloy is a realistic character to me, because not everybody is that interesting, dude. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that it's necessarily the most enjoyable thing for me as the player, but it's like, Aloy's personality is one that is actually believable, where, yeah, a lot of people are they're just kind of very one-dimensional. That's not that uncommon. And I'm not saying it's like the wisest thing in the world to make your main character in a video game that one-dimensional, but it's like, if you want to sell me on a character's personality and say, well, there are people like this, like, you're absolutely right. I've encountered many people like that. So, while maybe not the most interesting, also real, But when you're the main character, you can't be one-dimensional. You know what? Guerrilla Games has something else to say. All right, listen, I'll say they have tried. It seems like Guerrilla's starting to try to make an effort to make Aloy less one-dimensional, but I don't know. My whole thing is Aloy's character development was linked directly to the world itself. And again, after that big revelation, I feel like it just kind of, it made it so it's like, okay, cool. Like, so what else you got going on here? And I think it just, it's like, well, I got to save the world. Oh, okay. And that's fine. That's cool. We'll see. We'll see what I'm curious to see what they do with Horizon 3. And to get to the spoiler part, to me, what seems super interesting about Horizon 3 is I do like the way they ended Horizon 2 or Forbidden West, where there's like this, I'm trying to remember exactly what the plot was. Basically, there is this group of advanced humans. They have like advanced technology because they escaped the planet and they went to I think they were trying to go they went like somewhere way out there in space, I guess, to try to like restart. And I think so. God damn, I just know that there's this giant fucking like space thing, essentially. Maybe somebody can help like remind me. I don't know. Yeah, I'm entering spoiler territory. I'm actually like forgetting. I'm realizing now that, man, I don't remember the ending of that game as well as I thought. Yes, okay, that's what it was. I knew it was some kind of something. I It's like some kind of machine or creature or something that's like deep out there, deep in space, that's like making its way across the galaxy to this planet. And is that what it's called? Yeah, Nemesis. It's a nanomachine swarm. Yeah, you know what? Now yeah, I'm gonna have to replay Horizon Forbidden West or get a story recap again because okay. Oh wow. Yeah, all right. Now it's coming back to me. Yeah, and they had the ending boss battle was with I forget her name, but it was the actress who played Trinity in the Matrix. Yeah, they created like a super AI that turned against them. I've not played the Burning Shores DLC yet. No. Carrie Ann Moss. Yeah, that's her name. But, you know, to just get back to the general conversation, it wasn't a topic that I'd planned to discuss today, but certainly an interesting one. Open worlds, I do like them, but there are aspects to them I definitely don't enjoy as nearly as much and can sometimes be annoying. So my love-hate relationship, with open world design continues, and I do think devs are getting better at it, though, overall. All right, let me see here. So where are we at? So we're at the 2.5 hour mark. And actually, guys, I think this is going to be a good spot to end this stream. I didn't want to stream for too long today. I do want to give you guys a reminder. Anybody who is a channel member or who is gifted a channel membership, go check out the members lounge from yesterday. 2.5 hours long. I reacted to some drum solos, which was pretty cool. I reacted to Buckethead. I don't know if you guys know who Buckethead is, but if you don't know, you'll learn in that stream. And we had some more deeper conversation towards the end of that stream as well. So if you are a channel member, go check that out. We'll do another members lounge soon. And so, yeah, I do want to thank you guys for joining me today. Thank you for tuning in, and I want to give a big shout out to everybody who gifted memberships. We're sitting at 16 memberships gifted, so thank you guys so much for that. And thank you to everybody who donated a super chat, and just a general thank you to everybody who helps support the content here. I also want to give a shout out to Devil Shooter. He does the timestamps for the streams, and he does a great job. So if you see him, in the comment section, give him a thank you. I know he appreciates it. And yeah, that's going to do it for the stream. Definitely went a little bit off topic towards the end here, but it's all good. I think the bulk of the conversation was centered around the topic of the future of consoles. So, all right. I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their day. And yeah, I will catch you guys in the next one. So until then, everybody, take care.